My name is Steve. For those that haven't met me or seen me around, I'm Steve Ryan. I'm a web developer for ASU Engineering. I've been doing WordPress in my personal life for about maybe 10 years-ish or so. I've been doing it for ASU for the last probably about 4. Um, Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about faculty websites, and I wanted to start with a basic question. So, and I asked this in preparation for the presentation. I asked this to a bunch of different people in the Slack environment, but I just asked them a simple question, like if somebody asked you this question, can you build a faculty website for me? How would you respond? Like, what would you say? And most of the time, the answer is just a pretty much flat no, which is disappointing but understandable, right? It's hard to dedicate yourself to actually do this kind of work for other people. The reasons cited for people saying that is just the inability to provide maintenance. You have to do support for them. Content development is usually a hard part. So some places offer them in special circumstances for specific faculty members, and it usually involves like the need to publish something really important, or the need to like try to go after some money, formation of new research labs, grant dependency, that kind of thing. Some universities are lucky enough to actually have a centralized like self-service area for this kind of offering. But even then, the typical answer is no, I can't do it for you, but you can go do it over here in this area. So, as you're answering that question, you're having that internal dialogue with your, with your team, with yourself, and you're trying to figure out, well, is this a good investment of my time? Is it a good investment of our time with what we have to offer? And usually it's hard to come up with positive things to say about faculty websites. I'm trying to be very honest, but we don't deliberately push traffic to them almost ever in any circumstance. We don't usually feature links to personal sites in something like our marketing materials or other circumstances. The content in them is typically really hard to digest. It's written for very focused academic consumption typically. And there's no clear call to action within any of these sites at all. It's just, it's information about the person or about the lab, and usually that's about it. And what I think the biggest sticking point is that the faculty websites tend to help promote the needs of the faculty member individually instead of the university or the college as a whole, which is hard to invest your time in something that's only going to help one person. But at ASU Engineering, our answer was yeah, sure, why not? We've said yes to that particular question for a while, and the reason, the biggest reason really is because when we were asked the first time, we didn't want to say no, and we still don't want to say no. It's our job. We consider it a point of pride really to find a way to say yes and to continue to deliver those services and to continue to be engaging for for our faculty members and the students who could say no to these smiling kids. Right? By saying yes, the faculty keeps them happy, keeps our students happy, keeps them engaged in what they're doing. When we were asked this question initially, we were asked in either a different, we might have been asked in a different way. Sometimes faculty members have come from other places with their personal sites in hand saying, hey, can you host this for me? Can you make this look like an ASU site? And the answer to that question was, again, yes, we can definitely figure out a way to host your content and put it out there so that people can see it. So, in the beginning, our initial offering was very, very simple. We said yes to almost anybody that asked that question. But the very next sentence that we said was, please don't tell anybody. We're going to do this just for you, but nobody else. And I think that we probably on people like on campus, right? We've said it a lot, and we still kind of hold to that mentality of trying to keep it on a little bit less of an official offering. We've told people a hard line, we don't use any other technology other than WordPress. That's just the kind of shop that we are around here. That's what we know how to support, how to deal with. We have stuck with the default themes in the past. So like 2012, really good year. We had probably 30 or 40 sites, probably even 6 months ago that were still running 2012 because it was really super basic. There wasn't a whole lot there. It was easy to deal with. And the magic handoff, right? The idea was that, yeah, sure, we'll help you build it. We'll help you get it up and running. And then we're going to give you the keys. And you're going to maintain the content. You're going to maintain the code. You're going to handle it from there, but we'll at least get you started. And it worked. Like, we kept things running that way for a long time. We handled requests for content updates and asset creations on all of our sites, not just the big ones, but the little faculty sites as well. And we tried to work it all in and managed to make it work. During this period of our web offerings, my boss was a one-woman show, Stephanie. I think that she probably slept maybe 4 hours a night during the school year to try to keep up with everything, including the maintenance and all of the different kinds of requests that came in. And I think that she's happy to have some more help now. So, but then, yeah, the wheels fell off, problems ensued. And I think that you guys can probably figure out where this is going. Yeah, eventually scalability becomes a factor. You can't invest that in server related problem. The place where we were parking all of these websites actually were on machines that were housed and maintained by ASU people, but eventually that service became not reached end of life, and maintenance of the servers itself became an issue. And then content, the content always dies and withers, and if you don't take care of it, it dies on the vine. It becomes outdated and old and not great. And then we also inherited problems. So this is probably something specific to an engineering college, but we deal with engineers who have the ability to make websites and do it themselves. But we tend to inherit those problems as they become abandoned or lose ownership. So we get handed the keys to something that we have no idea how it works or what it is, but we'll have to deal with it and run with it too. And then we were portfolio was just costing us a ton to maintain in terms of time and money and energy. And we needed to focus on other things as we pivoted towards making new messages and different kind of marketing. Yeah, so faculty websites, like when you get right down to what it is, they can be totally awesome, right? Like, especially when they manage to get our attention in terms, like as a professional marketing crew, professional web developing crew, we can do some really amazing things with the content that comes out of these particular sessions. There's a really good example of a faculty oriented website called Brain Done Engineering. The best in our collection that we looked at when we did our initial survey of how we're going to handle this better in the future is that the best ones required our attention, and when we gave it to them, we made it awesome. It requires really good, high quality images, and their website's actually on the slide. I elected not to do that. Instead, this happened yesterday about 300 yards from our office. This is an actual train wreck. And the smoke could be seen from about 20 miles away. So I figured it was very appropriate to talk in terms of like the bad and the unloved, because this is really what happens to websites when they just die. When you don't have that kind of level of involvement, that's what happens. So we're going to rebuild. We decided that we needed to do something about this particular problem because we had websites that were they didn't speak well to what we represented as ASU engineering. They had inconsistent everything, inconsistent branding, inconsistent navigation, inconsistent imagery, inconsistent names. The content was wrong. The context of ASU was almost completely obliterated on most of these things because it just didn't conform to our branding in any way. So it's really hard to even understand that you were still on an ASU domain when you visited one of these sites because it just looked way different, too different. And then the images, images for faculty websites run from mediocre to just downright awful. We get things from like screen captures from PowerPoint presentations. We get research posters that wind up in a resolution of like 2 pixels on the screen. We get whole pages that are made of nothing but like text is captured as an image. Like if it's the worst possible practice of the web, you're gonna find it someplace on a faculty website, and you know that's just what happens. And then from an accessibility standpoint, they're terrible. Like we were letting them run the show for a while, and so things like even the basics of accessibility stuff like alt text and document structure wasn't even enforced or even really a concern for the most part. So in studying our particular problem and trying to figure out how we do faculty websites better, we made one big bet. I set aside 30 days in our work queue to say no, or to just say not now, right? So 30 days of pausing the new request pipeline of stuff related to faculty websites to actually build some kind of a better theme in order to handle all of the stuff that we're doing. We kind of broke it down. We figured out the common areas between the good stuff and the bad stuff and came up with this kind of pattern of stuff that we're going to do. So we're going to build a theme that catered to about 80% of what we discovered in 2 basic use cases. So the first use case was a website for an individual faculty member, mostly a record of accomplishments and maybe a working CV. And then we wanted a website for something like a small to mid-sized lab group on campus. So 1 or 2 faculty members working with a bunch of students to conduct research. That was the second pattern. So our goals for the theme that we built were to sort of reduce the need for the end user to focus on the page layout or design. We wanted to deliver something that was pretty prepackaged and out of the box. Images are definitely a problem, and they're hard to come by. So we wanted to make our design, the product that we built, actually like reduce the emphasis on the need for like a big cover hero or large scale images to tell stories, because they're just some of them don't exist and some of them are really hard to find. We wanted to make it really, really easy to use, like the most basic baseline WordPress site. And that was actually something that we pulled out of the pile that used the default themes, right? The default themes are really easy to use because there's no features there. We wanted to do something very similar. And then we want to emphasize the relationships between the content types that we kind of discovered there too. So we wanted to make a home for about 80% of the content that we know was going to be there, because when we studied these faculty websites, they were basically the same pattern over and over again. The thing that we built became our ASU Labs theme. It's active in about 30 different properties right at the moment, and the plan is to start small. We're still very small, but we have plans to grow it up, with another probably 50 to 70 different sites that we have that meet our need and meet that pattern. We're growing at about the 1 or 2 new sites a week, possibly, and even all this time, we're still not doing any mass communication to all of our faculty. We're just letting kind of the word trickle out that we have this thing, and it's been working for us thus far. So when we did our content study of the good, the bad, and the ugly that we talked about before, we realized that most of the faculty websites are kind of coming from a common place, right? They want really basic stuff, and they need a good way to do it, right? So the page that represents a person or multiple people on the site, usually it's the PI, sometimes it's students, sometimes it's other faculty members on staff. They need a record of the research that's coming from the lab or coming from themselves. So some indication of what the research projects are. Either they're ongoing and they need help, or they're completed and this is what we just did. And usually a publication list of some kind. Either all of the published works from a particular lab, or all of the published works from a particular person, but some list is in there. And I kind of looked at that, like if faculty websites were sporting events, the publication list is the scoreboard. Most people see, okay, the longer the list, the more esteem the faculty members. So they like having those there for that particular purpose. It's a point of pride for them. Um, One of the things that we noticed when we did our survey, though, is that there's clearly relationships between these different content types, right? So the people that are being mentioned in a faculty website are related to the research that is going on in that place. Like a person does the research project, and the research project does actually spawn a publication, which is also, written and authored and cited by a person. But when we looked at what we had produced and what other people had produced on our behalf, we realized that all of that stuff was there, but it was really difficult to see the connection, especially if there was more than one person involved. So a faculty website might mention 1 or 2 faculty members and like 7 or 8 grad students, kind of working together in one place. But it was really hard to figure out like which grad student was working on which project and which publication came from which set of people. And so we wanted to make sure that what we built actually featured content, but also the connections between the content were really important. And then we wanted to make sure that once we had that connection established, that everything else that came on top of that actually had a place to land, right? A curated home for all of the little bits and pieces that people might want to put in these things. And we delivered a couple of these things right away with our first offering, and some of them are still pending. We're still waiting for other people to express interest in this particular feature, but we realized that if we organized our theme and featured this kind of content in this way, that all of these bits and pieces would have kind of a natural place to fall. So, product. The theme is we call the ASU Labs theme because we're bad at naming things. And it features a bunch of different templates, and I'll talk to you about some of them here. So the first content type was the person, right? We wanted to put people right at the forefront of this site. So we built a page template that centered around a custom post type for a person, and that custom post type is one big image and a lot of text, and that's what we really needed. We wanted one thing, and then everything else was not dependent. And we wanted that picture to be as simple as possible, so square, portrait style. We wanted to reduce the design clutter, where so there's no big hero, there's nothing that goes all the way across the screen there. Professional portraits, we offer that as a service to anybody in ASU engineering, either faculty members or faculty, staff, or students can come, or at least they used to be able to come like once or twice a month to be able to get their picture taken. And we're hoping to be able to continue that when stuff gets better, I think, in the future. But as a rule, like a professional portrait is a really easy sort of get as an image to feature, so we kind of ran with it. We had a big link back to the official directory for all of the people at ASU. We wanted this to feel right away like a connected ASU service, so that you could get back to something that would be like a more official ASU statement. And then, the basic contact stuff like your email address, your phone number, and then a big open block of text underneath it to put basically whatever you want, like a description of yourself. We have people putting pictures of their cats in there, like their lab pets and that kind of stuff. It runs the gambit from something that's very professional to very personal, and that's fine. We wanted people to be able to do what they wanted to do with that site. On the back end, we made a decision really early. We started this project actually pre-Gutenberg. It was 4.7, 4.8, where Gutenberg was coming and looming, but we decided really early that we were going to be okay with meta boxes in the Gutenberg interface for a while. We figured out that this particular interface, right, a form that just lists the first, last, middle name, has a place in the back end to put all the little bits and pieces of content that you'd otherwise have to define and figure out how to format in your site. So we wanted to make it as dead easy as possible to sort of do all this. So meta boxes, that was a thing. And you'll see there's a lot of them kind of run through here. So one of the things we decided to do right away was actually, spend a lot of time on this particular archive page because a directory is something that can be built out of individual pages that feature people. So we wanted to make an archive page that, publish an archive page, and it's going to look fantastic, and then you're done with that particular piece. And that's been a really big success. Like, we really just published the archive page from the menu system, and you're good to go. And then later on, we added nuances about how to organize and drop and drag content with different plugins that do that from the admin, so that you can order the people on the archive page however you want to. You can order the categories, and you can feature somebody at the top of the page. So the second piece of content, or the second content sort of bucket that we had, was a research project. So we had, we definitely have a custom post type for a research project that actually just looks like this. It is mostly a blank space. It could very easily just be a blank page, but we added a couple of meta boxes to this custom post type just to differentiate it between like a normal page and a research page. The meta fields actually include like a status for the project, like, so that really easy you can say, okay, it's a completed project, it's open, we're actively working on it, really easy. And then we designed another little small space for the post type image. We didn't want it to be, taking over the page. We kind of stuck it up in the upper right hand corner. And again, it's because images for research projects are hard to come by. Like, you can take pictures of like a computer screen, you can take pictures of robotics and that kind of stuff are really easy to photograph. But if you're writing code, if you're doing stuff on a microscopic scale, it's sometimes hard to get images that actually fit and make sense and are notable, right? So we reduced the size, we kind of stuck it up there, and we tested a bunch of different kinds of images. So if you happen to put like a picture of your research project poster up there, it would still probably look okay. Not great, but okay. We tied this page together with a couple of taxonomies for funding sources. So you could really easily identify and very quickly tag a project with a funding source like NSF or something. And then also a research project, like a topic taxonomy that sort of ties all these pages together. So rather than focus on an archive page for the research projects like we did with the people, we instead decided to focus on this particular taxonomy as an overview page for all of the research projects, because we figured that it would be a little easier for people to do this kind of work, right? So there is a research theme taxonomy that runs all the way through here, and you can publish the actual individual taxonomy term pages and get this result out of it with a little special formatting. This ended up being the 10,000 foot view of our, of research that's going on in a particular lab or in a particular project. It was intended to be like a sentence or two that really describes it at a super high level, and really wanted to end up becoming a really good landing page for your research. So, I work at such lab and I'm doing this project, or I focus on this topic, and this is the topic, right? Again, smaller images, smaller things all the way down the page, and then the related projects and related publications just sort of filter in across the bottom. And as soon as you tag a research theme, or I'm sorry, as you tag a research project or a publication with the theme, then your all that stuff is connected on the bottom. So the third bucket are the publications, right? So we have people, we have research projects, and we have publications. The publications actually represented a compromise. We really wanted to feature individual pages that represented key publications for their site. We wanted to kind of help people understand that the best value that they could deliver was in a single publication and not just a giant list of them. It's, again, mostly an open page. We suggested to people that they copy and paste the abstract and some of the text from their journal article as much as they could get away with, really, and then link them up to the other types of content that are there. We also delivered the ability to sort of upload a PDF of the individual publication, and that PDF and the image of that PDF is what you would typically see in the upper right-hand corner. So clicking on that featured image would actually download the PDF of the article and like have an easier way to see that. So it gets tricky here. We wanted to build an archive publication page, right? That's the sort of holy grail of faculty websites, is they want a list that represents every publication that they have, but that becomes complicated and problematic really fast. Because if you are making people publish this archive page, what that actually means is that you're really asking them to make one entry in their faculty website for every publication that they have. And that's just that's a ton of content that, you know, we didn't really want people to have to go through that data entry problem in order to use this particular feature really well. And this page template exists in the theme, but it's not very pretty. We didn't spend a ton of time on it because we realized very quickly that it wasn't going to get adopted very easily. So when we started, we built those content types, the buckets, the three things that we talked about, and then we started figuring out a way to connect them together, right? I dug up some old articles and found a blast from the past that was a plugin that was abandoned a while ago, honestly, called PostAPost. I'm hoping that I get a ton of I can't see the thumbs up in the chat window, but I'm hoping that people that are WordPress devs from around the block could, like, at least have used this plugin before. It's amazing. It was abandoned in 2016, but man, you turn it on, you plug it in, and it's working out of the box. It looks like WordPress of old. It needs a facelift for sure, but like everything works out of it, and it's amazing. Once upon a time, PostAPost, for those who don't actually know it, was a way to create a relationship between a post type and another post type, or any kind of content in your site. So between a page and a post, between a user and a page, between pages and other pages. I have nothing but great things to say about that particular plugin, and the fact that it's still working even after 5 years of abandonment. You turn it on, it works. But you know, we did it, and let me go back to the interface. So this is what it looks like. It allows you to have a meta box in the sidebar that you basically click a couple of buttons. You create a connection between the people and the in really easy to maintain links that go back and forth and really help tie together those three buckets of content that we made before. So it's really easy to see that this research project involved Jordy and Data and a bunch of other people from Star Trek. And you can link things from either place. So if you have a research project and you want to link to a person, great. And it goes back and forth, and you don't have to fuss with it, which is great. It's like 2 clicks and you're done. Yeah, and this particular feature definitely helped boost our adoption of this product as we kind of rolled it out to other people, because it was really easy to use. So we made all this, we rolled it out, people are using it and they're cheering in the stands, and we're feeling very good about ourselves, right? We took something that was a low priority product, a low priority value proposition before, and we all of a sudden turned it into a whole bunch of different wins. We can support multiple sites with one good product. That's a huge win. 30 sites, good to go with one particular theme, and the theme is really consistent and does what we want it to do. We're answering questions about this kind of content development based on delivering a feature into a theme rather than, yeah, let me help fix your content. Let me help fix this together. And developing good documentation to help people really own it themselves and really do it themselves is a big key, and another big deliverable along the way, but there's definitely a lot of value in that too. So you turn this on, you let people use it, and they can all of a sudden feel really empowered to do the things that they wanted to do. We have other things that are in the pipeline. We're redesigning the theme at some point to match a newer set of brand standards that are coming down our pipeline. And I think that will only help increase our adoption and the value that are there. And then definitely blocks. Like, we have to move away from the meta boxes, which are great and honestly work really well, into blocks that should work equally well, right? That's the future of WordPress, and that's the sort of big challenge that we have along the way. So as we're doing this work and we're experimenting with the smaller set of people that are using this particular theme on our own, we're also realizing that that there's other things that we can squeeze out of this, right? There are other values that we might be able to do. Like, we're finding even a more value by coupling our theme in Multisite, and the WPCampus community as a whole, and helping us figure out where we're going with our Multisite has been amazing and fantastic, and I learned a ton from watching you guys do what you're doing. There's all kinds of different things that you can do to, click a button to deploy a site, log into something, fill out a form, click a button, and you're up and running. And that's even more automation than we have right at the moment, but we're headed in that direction. Things like the network media library, that's been an amazing place. We can dump a whole bunch of assets into one particular in a multi-site and offer that media library in connection with the local media library as like a collection of global assets. So things like background textures and our logo and the little animated GIFs you just saw a second ago. Like, we can dump a bunch of those things in there and let people use them in collective and not have to have them uploaded individually, right? I want to give a shout out to the folks at Georgia Tech. I sat in a presentation from WPCampus, I think it was 2 years ago, in St. Louis, and listened to them talk about their Georgia Tech renewals plugin and the process that which sites in their multi-site were abandoned and still needed attention and still there. I've learned quite a bit actually from rewatching that session, and although we're not doing it right at the moment, as soon as we scale up to a point where it becomes a problem for us to be able to do that, that'll be the strategy that we use to be able to deliver that. So definitely worthwhile to go back and dig through the archives and rewatch that presentation. I got a lot out of it when I did it. And then more value, right? We can do more. There's still more that you can do with this kind of setup. You can deliver different kinds of connections between the different faculty websites. So, we can now pull the latest publications and latest projects that were posted from our multi-site installation and put them. And it's because we sort of did our homework, and we have a bucket for all of those things to go into that we're able to do that. And then a feature that we're going to build soon, a contact form on all of these different faculty websites that functions more like an RFI than an actual contact form, right? What we discovered from talking to the people who are actually building these sites is that part of the journey for grad students in figuring out where it is that they want to land and what it is that they wanted to study involves a journey through these different faculty websites. They are used as sort of springboards to figure out who a faculty member is, maybe what individual projects they're working on, or what kinds of things that they published in the past. And they're definitely using these little tiny faculty sites as like an introduction to somebody, or in order to figure out like, okay, this is someplace where I can see myself, right? So as they reach out to contact a faculty member to see if there's positions available, if there's funding available for what it is that they want to do, their contact form becomes, can function as an official like RFI for the thing. So I had asks, asks of the community, right? That's what we're about. I want to be able to build a better publications plugin that actually handles that difficult custom post type that we're dealing with in our area. handling those journal articles and lists of journal articles are just hard to deal with. We want to be able to make standardized blocks for different citation styles. We want to make sure that custom post types and archive pages are, being able to handle that in the future. So if anybody has that same kind of need out there in our community, I would love to partner with them and work on something that is applicable to more than just our faculty sites and be able to do those things. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out these nuances for a good faculty website. We delivered something that's obviously ASU oriented, but then I'm realizing, well, faculty websites are the same across different universities, and I would be willing to bet that the needs of faculty at ASU mirror the needs of faculty in other places. So, hey, the theme is available, it's open source. If somebody would like to work on a version of it, or making what we built kind of child themable or customizable in some way so that it ends up being a reflection of your college or your university, I'm more than willing to sort of help decouple what we've done and put out a product that could be picked up by multiple places. That would be really amazing, actually. So I am all in with PostAPost. I have a lot of good things to say about it, and I really actually see a sort of a need for it, maybe a niche need, but still a need for it. In particular, because of blocks and what's going on with Gutenberg and making that a thing, right? PostAPost represents a really easy way in order to connect a content type with another content type. And after PostAPost was abandoned, the different MetaBox plugins for WordPress actually assumed that functionality. So you can find it in ACF, or you can find it in the MetaBox plugin, MetaBox plugin. You can find it in our MetaBox plugin that we're using for our sites here too. So we want to, PostAPost is an integral part of this, and I would love to own it, but I have no idea what that actually means. Like, I would love to pull it out of the trash heap and put it back in the repo where it goes. And I'm hoping that somebody can tap me on the shoulder and tell me exactly what I'm in for if I decide to go down that particular road. So, and then one more, as we were doing our exploration, one more post type actually kind of came across, and a need to actually publish data sets in particular as separate from research projects. So the actual data that you're using to conduct your research in a way that makes it accessible for other people. It's a perfect example of why websites like this are great and they exist, is because as we're trying to accelerate the pace of research, and as people are trying to validate your results, they need access to the same data that you started with, or the same data that you drew your conclusions from. Academic journals are great about putting out the actual conclusions, and they will give you a little bit of the data, but the actual big chunky data set they're using is hard to come by in that circumstance. Websites make a great foil for that, right? So for those that are interested in publishing their own data and reproducing their work in other places, having a data set kind of post type in this theme actually makes a lot of sense. So that was it. That was a lot about faculty websites, probably more than I think most people realized were there. I would love to open this back up for questions if y'all have any.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
So we have just under 5 minutes for questions. So I ask attendees in the chat, if you have any questions, please use the submit a question box underneath the chat and underneath the video to submit a question, and I will attempt to get to 1 or 2 questions before the end of the session.
I'll add that I'm around in the WPCampus Slack almost every day. I'm readily available to talk about this. I definitely have a passion for faculty websites, which is a super weird thing to be niche exploring, but I love them. I think they're great, and like I said, I think you can derive a lot of value from them. The documentation for our theme, as well as the theme itself, are available online in GitHub. I put the link in this slide that you're looking at. And the links to all of this stuff will be available in obviously the WPCampus Learning Library in the future. So happy to talk to you about it then.
Steve, a question came in about publications. The question from our audience member is, for publications, are you pulling any data from existing data sources?
The answer to that is no, although that is definitely something that we considered on how to do. The reason that we're not doing that right at the moment is because the data sources that we were presented with kind of varied, few and far between. We can some data, I think, from our library system about a particular that maintain these particular sites have they just have their list like stored in a Word document, and most of the time, maybe if we're lucky, they'll have a bibtex file. A bibtex is a JSON-like format for their publications. It's sort of a thing. But we haven't written any kind of import script or export script or even standardized on what kind of format for that particular data that we would want to support, only because we couldn't find a really good format that we could adopt, across the way. I'm definitely interested, though, in doing that in the future. I think that would help overcome the problem of doing the data entry and maintaining these things. Is if there was a really good import-export service that made your posts for you, or at least organized a page full of blocks that did that same kind of thing. So, no, but it was considered, but no.
So, Steve, with that, looks like we filled our time for the session.
Okay.
I thank you very much for your talk and for the details and expertise that you've shown. I know for me, I'm going to have to go back and reference this session a few times to pick up those tips and tricks to use back at Georgia Tech's campus. So thank you very much.
Yeah.